Ladies and gentlemen, everything in life begins with purpose. Nothing God creates is without intention, and that includes you. The challenges and difficulties you face are not random, they are intricately woven into the fabric of your purpose. When God created you, He didn't just see your beginning, He saw your entire journey, including the moments when life would feel impossible. Those moments are not designed to defeat you, but to draw out the potential He placed within you. Purpose is the foundation of all creation. The sun was created to shine, water was created to refresh, and trees were created to bear fruit. In the same way, you were created with a specific purpose that fits perfectly into God's grand design. This is why challenges often seem overwhelming. They are there to push you toward discovering and fulfilling that purpose. When you face difficulties, instead of asking, "Why me?" ask, "What is this teaching me about my purpose?" Often, God uses the impossible to open your eyes to what you are truly capable of through Him. It is in the moments of struggle and adversity that your divine purpose is clarified. Think about this: God never gives up on His purpose. Even when situations seem to contradict His promises, He is working behind the scenes to align circumstances with the purpose for which He created you. He is a God of precision, and every experience you encounter, both good and bad, is part of the process He uses to fulfill His intent. Your purpose is not defined by what you lack or the obstacles in front of you. It is defined by the Creator who made you with a reason in mind. The very fact that you are alive means there is still a purpose for you to fulfill. And when life feels impossible, that is often the moment when God steps in, because He is committed to seeing His purpose through to completion. Faith is the invisible bridge between the seen and the unseen, the natural and the supernatural. It is the confidence that, even when circumstances look dire, God is still in control and working for your good. Faith is not merely belief, it is an act of trust that compels you to step forward, even when you cannot see the path ahead. It is this act of trust that moves God to intervene in your life in ways beyond human comprehension. In Scripture, every extraordinary move of God was activated by someone's faith. When the Israelites faced the Red Sea, with Pharaoh's army pursuing them, it was not their strength or strategy that made a way, it was Moses' faith in God's instruction to stretch out his staff over the waters. When Peter walked on water, it was not the water's ability to hold him up, but his faith in Jesus' command to come that enabled the miraculous. Faith does not deny reality, it acknowledges that God's power is greater than any circumstance. It says, "I know the storm is real, but I also know the one who calms the storm." Faith shifts your perspective from focusing on the problem to trusting in the promise. It allows you to surrender control and invite God to work in ways that defy logic and human limitation. Without faith, you rely solely on your own abilities, and there are limits to what you can achieve. But faith invites God's limitless power into your situation. It is the key that opens the door to His intervention. When you trust Him fully, you give Him permission to do what only He can do: turn impossibilities into possibilities, barriers into breakthroughs, and setbacks into setups for greater purpose. Faith is not passive, it requires action. It is the step forward when everything in you wants to retreat. It is speaking life when all you see is death. It is holding on to hope when the world tells you to give up. And it is through this kind of faith that God responds, because He honors those who trust in Him, even in the face of the impossible. Impossibilities are not meant to break you, they are meant to reveal where your trust truly lies. When you encounter a situation that seems insurmountable, it is not a punishment or a sign of abandonment, it is a test of trust. These moments challenge you to decide whether you will rely on your own limited understanding or place your confidence in God, whose power knows no bounds. God often allows impossibilities to arise to strengthen your relationship with Him. Trust is not built in times of ease, it is forged in the fire of difficulty. When everything is beyond your control, you are invited to lean fully on the one who has always been in control. It is in these moments that God's faithfulness becomes most evident, not because He changes, but because your trust in Him allows you to see Him more clearly. When faced with the impossible, you have a choice. You can focus on the problem, letting fear and doubt consume you, or you can fix your eyes on God and trust that He is working on your behalf. Trust does not require understanding, it requires surrender. It is saying, "God, I don't know how you will do it, but I believe you will make a way." Throughout history, God has used impossible situations to demonstrate His power and draw His people closer to Him. When David faced Goliath, it was not the size of the giant that determined the outcome, but the depth of David's trust in God. When the widow at Zarephath gave her last meal to Elijah, it was not her resources that sustained her, but her trust in God's promise of provision. Impossibilities expose your dependence on God. They strip away every illusion of self-sufficiency and remind you that He is the source of all strength, wisdom, and provision. These moments are not just tests, they are opportunities for growth. Every time you trust God in the face of the impossible, your faith grows stronger, your relationship with Him deepens, and you become a living testimony of His power to make a way where there is none. God's ways are higher than our ways, and His thoughts are far beyond human comprehension. What may seem illogical, impractical, or even impossible to us is often the very pathway God uses to accomplish His will. His solutions transcend human logic because they are not confined by time, space, or the limitations of human understanding. God operates in the realm of the miraculous, where the impossible becomes possible. When we face challenges, we often look for solutions that make sense to us. We analyze, calculate, and strategize based on our limited perspective. But God sees the end from the beginning. He knows what we cannot know and works in ways we would never expect. His solutions are designed not only to meet the immediate need, but also to fulfill His greater purpose in our lives. Consider the story of the Israelites crossing the Jordan River. Logically, crossing a river at flood stage without a bridge or a boat is impossible. But God instructed the priests to step into the water first, carrying the Ark of the Covenant. It wasn't until they obeyed that the waters parted, allowing the people to cross on dry ground. God's solution didn't align with human reasoning, it required faith and obedience to His word. In our lives, God's solutions often come in ways we don't anticipate. A door we thought was closed might lead to an opportunity far greater than the one we were pursuing. A delay we perceive as a setback may be God positioning us for something better. Even suffering and trials can become the very tools God uses to bring healing, restoration, and growth. God's solutions are not bound by conventional logic because He works from a divine perspective. He sees every detail and orchestrates events in ways that maximize His glory and our good. What seems like a detour is often the direct route to His promise. Our role is not to figure out how God will work, but to trust that He will. When we release our need for control and align ourselves with His will, we create space for Him to move in extraordinary ways. Trusting God's solutions requires humility, because it means admitting that we don't have all the answers. It means stepping back from our limited perspective and allowing Him to guide us through paths we may not understand. And when we do, we find that His ways are always perfect, even when they defy human logic. In every situation, how you respond holds the power to shape the outcome. Challenges, trials, and even impossibilities are not just events, they are opportunities that demand a response. Your attitude, faith, and actions in those moments determine whether the situation becomes a stepping stone toward growth or a stumbling block that holds you back. When you respond to difficulties with fear or doubt, you limit what God can do through you. Fear causes you to retreat, while doubt blinds you to the possibilities of divine intervention. But when you respond with faith and trust, you open the door for God to move in ways that surpass your expectations. Your response is not about the size of the problem, it's about the size of your belief in the one who can solve it. Think about the story of the 12 spies sent to scout the promised land. 10 of them responded with fear, focusing on the giants in the land and their own perceived weakness. Their response led to a prolonged wilderness journey for the entire nation. But 2 spies, Joshua and Caleb, responded with faith, declaring that with God's help, the land could be conquered. Their response eventually positioned them to inherit the promise. Your response also reflects your perspective. If you see a challenge as an obstacle, you may give up. But if you see it as an opportunity for God to demonstrate His power, you are more likely to press forward. This shift in perspective transforms how you act. Instead of shrinking back, you move forward in obedience, knowing that God is with you. Obedience is a critical part of your response. When God gives an instruction, your willingness to act determines what happens next. It might not make sense at the moment, but obedience positions you for breakthrough. Imagine if Peter had hesitated when Jesus told him to cast his net after a night of unsuccessful fishing. His response of obedience led to an overwhelming catch, a miracle that confirmed God's provision. Your response also sets the tone for others around you. When you respond with faith, courage, and trust, it inspires those watching you. Just as David's confidence in facing Goliath rallied the Israelites, your faith-filled response can encourage others to believe that victory is possible. Ultimately, your response in any situation is a choice. It is a choice to trust God, to step forward despite uncertainty, and to believe that He is working all things for your good. The outcome is often less about the problem itself and more about how you choose to engage with it. With the right response, even the most impossible situations can turn into testimonies of God's power and faithfulness. The way you respond to life's challenges is pivotal, not only for the outcome, but for your growth and the fulfillment of God's purpose in your life. Each trial is an invitation to trust Him more deeply, act in faith, and align yourself with His will. Remember, your response shapes not only the situation, but also your character and testimony. When you choose to respond with faith, obedience, and courage, you position yourself for divine intervention and victory. God is always ready to make a way, but He is looking for a response that says, I trust you no matter what. So in every challenge, choose to trust, choose to believe, and choose to move forward, knowing that with God, the impossible becomes possible.